Maza Mengista is a novelist and essayist. She's the author of the novels Beneath the Lion's Gaze, 2011 fiction runner-up for the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, and selected by The Guardian as one of the 10 best contemporary African books, and The Shadow King, called a brilliant novel, compulsively readable by Salman Rushdie. She is the recipient of fellowships from the Fulbright Scholar Program, the National Endowment of the Arts, and Creative Capital. Her work can be found in the New Yorker, New York Review of Books, Granta, The Guardian, the New York Times, Rolling Stone, and BBC, among many, many other places. Maza will be introducing fiction winner Golnaz Hashemzadeh Bonde. Maza.
It's really good to be back. Thank you, Sharon, for inviting me. I cannot think of a better time in this moment to be at a Literary Peace Prize. So I thank you all for being here. I'm sorry, I'm still taken up by all the speeches that have been going on. But it is really, sincerely my honor to be introducing Golnaz Hashemzadeh Bonde's What We Owe. I remember when Sharon emailed me and said, this is embargoed information, but would you like to come here and introduce this? And I was in the midst of so many other things and feeling really stressed out. And then as soon as she started describing the book to me, I said, I'm there, of course. And I love Dayton, so it's great to be here. But early in What We Owe, we come to realize, those of you that have read it and those of you who will read it, we come to realize that this will not be a gentle story. And we are not in the presence of a gentle narrator. Nahid is angry. In fact, she is furious. She is manipulative. She has deep hates and even deeper regrets. And she is dying, and she will not let go of any of it. From this premise unfolds one of the most powerful, gut-wrenching, and startlingly beautiful books I have read in a long, long time. This story of an Iranian woman's battle with cancer is also a story about migration and the battles that bodies, psyches, must endure in order to move elsewhere and survive. The first sentence in the book alerts us to what's at stake for Nahid. I've always carried my death with me, she states. Our time was always borrowed, she adds, thinking of her days as a revolutionary, then her flight with her husband to Sweden. We weren't supposed to be alive. We should have died in the revolution. What do you do with the life that you've been given? How do you make your time count when you don't think it is rightfully yours? These are some of the questions that rest at the heart of What We Owe, a book I have come to think of as a knotted fist, packed tightly with truths as painfully honest as they are illuminating. This is also a book about uprootedness and the devastating cost of survival. I wonder now what's worth more, Nahid says, freedom and democracy, or the people who love you, people who will take care of your children when you die. This morning on a panel, Golnaz asked, what is left behind when people seek new lives in order to survive? What do we carry with us? Escaping something, Golnaz said, does not mean you are free. And it is this idea of freedom that she tackles and spins on its head and complicates. What does it mean to be free if we are still bound by memories that constrict? To follow Nahid through her life, through this book, is to move at times in moments so dark and gripping it is hard to breathe. But Golnaz's writing, so compact and evocative, also bursts with light and love and an insistence that in the end, what matters most are those who gather around despite all of our flaws and return our embrace. Before I close out, I want to say I have been so moved by all of the talks, and I was especially moved by the song that we heard earlier, Do Something. And when I sat down, thank you. And I sat down at the table and started thinking about what does that mean for us today to do something after the fact of horror, in the midst of trauma, while we're still trying to take stock of what remains. What does it mean to do something? And I'm making this challenge to myself, and I'd like to extend it to all the rest of you, to all of us, that maybe perhaps what it means to do something in November as the holidays approach, as we know that there are always relatives around our table who will say things that offend us, that offend other people. Let's do something and say something back, because that's how it starts. So without saying much more, ladies and gentlemen, it is my sincere pleasure to introduce Golnaz Hashemzadeh Bonde, author of What We Owe.
Hello. Thank you, Maza, for those beautiful words. Thank you, Sharon, for initiating this award and creating this community. I've been very touched over the last couple of days with the engagement and compassion that you have, and your belief in literature and your belief in peace. And I will carry it with me. So thank you. You bring me hope. I was born in war, and in the aftermath of a very cruel and violent revolution. Bombs falling from the sky are my very first memories, as is fleeing the country in which I was born. I realized that I was very unfortunate in the timing and geography of my birth. I also realized that the fact that we managed to flee and ended up in Sweden turned me into an unusually fortunate person. And I will always be grateful for this. We got to live, and I got to grow up in one of the most peaceful places on earth. Growing up as a Swede meant freedom, equality, and opportunity. But that in itself, I dare say, has limited value. The greatness of it comes from knowing that it's not a given. It's not something to take for granted. Growing up, my father forced stories upon me. He would read them to me and early on put them in my hands and urge me to find any way of reading them myself. These stories, they were not entertainment. They were essentials. Literature was as central to him as was nutrition or housing, because fiction was the carrier of truth. My father wanted me to understand the world, but more importantly, he actually believed that I could. Among my first memories of my father's stories is a story called The Little Black Fish. It's a story by Persian writer Samad Behrangi, a children's story that was actually banned in Iran. It's about a little black fish in a pond and its quest for freedom, for finding a way out. The tale of the little fish, my father explained, captured the story of us, of my mother and my father, of who they were and what had led us here. My father also took me to the library, and I passed the Dayton library today, and I saw this quote on the building. It said, "When I got my library card, that was when my life began." And it really resonated with me because in many ways, my library card gave me my life. The library became my everything. My father and I would go there as often as we could. It was a safe place, an exploratory place. We would rummage through the children's books, looking for books that would educate us, that would teach us about Sweden, that would teach us about Swedishness, about who these people were, but most importantly, about who we were supposed to become. The world of Astrid Lindgren, author of Pippi Longstocking and many other unforgettable characters, really taught me everything I needed to know about the beauty of my new nation, its empowered children, you see Greta, with rights and a voice, but also about its loneliness, about its darkness. While literature enhanced my understanding for why we had ended up in this place and for the people who inhabited it, real life revealed another kind of truth. People did not know why we had come. People did not know who we were. And people did not know what we would become, that we would be a contribution. Some would say, go back. Some would say, you're taking what is ours. And some would say, this is not and will never be your country. My words, as a 3, 5, 7, 9, even 15-year-old, were not sufficient to give an answer. I wanted to tell them about the little black fish. I wanted to tell them about freedom and ask, do you know that you are free? And do you know that most people are not? And the thing is that our story was not out there. This was the mid-80s. We were among the first non-Europeans to come to Sweden. The shelves of the library did not contain us, know us, explain us. Refugees, Iranians, revolutionaries, freedom fighters. I never questioned this as a child. I didn't expect the world to tell my story or know me. I was just grateful because that was what my parents taught me to be. They taught me to know the value of freedom in itself, to know the value of the kind of library that actually allows all books. As most books that shaped them in their youth could only be found on the black market, and possessing those books was associated with great danger. But as an adult, I know that it would have mattered It would have empowered me to find myself represented on those shelves, and it would have mattered to those who did not know what to make of me to have someone tell them my story. And through my writing, I hope to help fill those gaps in our shelves. My daughter and son, they were born under a clear and silent sky. They have never ran, they have never fled, and I don't think that they've ever known fear. With a Swedish father and a very assimilated mother, they don't experience being different. They don't experience not being understood. And I don't see that they experience not being represented. But they do not yet know that they are free, because they have no idea that there are those who aren't. And I want my children to know this. My mother and father, they are no longer with us. My children will never know them. But it's very crucial that they know that their freedom, their privileged life, is built on the hard work and sacrifices of Gitti and Hamid. I want them to know what we owe. Thank you.